All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a special October edition of Morning Coffee Review. I'm Jason Artley, normally joined here with Michael Achave, but he's off having some fun, having some well-deserved vacation time as we move into our busy season. So I'll be covering some stuff by myself today, so bear with me. I might be slow to respond to the chat, but we will do our thing. So today, October 24th, we got a couple things to talk about. As far as deadlines, sales stuff, I got none of that, thankfully. But what I do want to talk about is that there was a new update for review that was pushed out last week. There are a couple new things in there that we're going to take a look at, but today's episode was all about customizing review and making it work for you in a better way. I know some people are pretty particular about what they like to see. There's a few other things going on. So as always, with every morning coffee review, go ahead and ask your questions in the chat. If you've got any questions related to what I'm talking about or not, I am taking a look at those things, and we will dive into them as we go. But first, I'm going to start sharing my screen, and we're going to talk about a few different things. All right. All right. So you can see my screen now. The first thing I'm going to do here, actually, before we get started, is I'm going to go to help, and we're going to talk about what's new in review. So there was an update. I believe it's, what is it? 21.0.50. So this is a pretty big release. A minor release, a major release would be a .1, but pretty big release for functionality in Review 21. So if you haven't upgraded yet, or if you are on Review 21 already, this is worth taking a look at. Now, I understand that some of you don't have access to updates. You don't get the notifications. That's okay. All of that can be set up as it gets deployed. So I'm going to show you what's new. And if you see something in here that you need, talk to the powers that be to make sure that you get those things installed. So what is new in Review 21? And if you haven't seen Review 21 at all or anything else, I'm going to come over here to help and I'll go to learn what's new, and it will give us the release notes, right? So in this latest release, so from the 17th, which was last Tuesday, they came up with multiply. This is the one that I was most excited about, right? Now we can create offset copies of markups and measurements. You can specify direction, rotation, distance at scale, number of copies, as well as preview before placing it on your document. So this is kind of like that offset thing that we've been looking for, something more CAD-like. It's not CAD-like, but it's pretty good. And I'll demonstrate this here in just a minute. Alex, I don't know if there was a beta for this. I don't get the beta notifications, nor do I want to play that game. I've done that before with Autodesk software, and it becomes a nightmare, but it's kind of cool. Custom captions. Customize your measurement captions with data from your markups list columns. You can choose from reviews columns or display values from your own custom columns. Now, full transparency, I played with this for a while yesterday, and I could not figure out how to get this to work. I think there's either something didn't work right, or I'm an idiot. I don't know. We'll dive into this too and see if we can find it. That's kind of what we do here. We'll go explore. And then also center coordinates. Now, civil folks like myself will like this one. You can add a center coordinate value to your markups list. This allows increased precision for workflows that require the exact center point. Now, going through this, it's basically just adding the X and Y, right? So this can do some cool things, and you can now show the centroid, but it is what it is. It's pretty all right. Going down into Studio, Bluebeam users who are invited to collaborate in a studio session but are not yet part of a plan can now collaborate more effectively. Hallelujah. Let me tell you how much of a difference this one's going to make. Collaborators are now able to use colors, stamps, snapshot, cloud plus, and highlight. Before, if you were an unpaid collaborator using Review 21, you were able to go in and see some things you could do a couple different markups, but you didn't have as much power. This gives you more control, which I think is good. So even if you are an unpaid collaborator, meaning that you do not have a paid subscription for it, you're going to be able to go in and see more things. You're going to get more functionality, which I'm guessing is going to probably make it tempting to just get the full version, right? Revu now includes and supports the Beast 3.0 profile. So there you go, Swedish friends. But yeah, they also fixed some sketch to scale measurements. They fixed some slow typing and text boxes. They fixed a few other things. But the big one, I think, from this update is the multiply function, which we'll dive into. Of course, going back, I don't know if we talked about this one. They did have some more support for ProjectWise and SharePoint. They did release the 2024 stuff for Revit, AutoCAD, and Navisworks, and going back and forth. So if you were, first to install Revu 21 over a year ago and you haven't updated it, certainly take the time to do so, because there is some great functionality here. All right, so let's dive in. Let's play with these things, and then we'll get into, diving into setting up Revu, right? Yes, David, super mega ultra. Thank you for that, because I think about it very fondly. All right, so I'm going to use my default civil Bluebeam data set here, and we're going to dive into this multiply feature. I think it's kind of clever, right? So how would you use this? You would use this a few different ways, right? You're going to use this for multiplying markups, you're offsetting them, copying, doing some different things. So let's go ahead and play with this. Now, since it is going to ask me for a distance, I want to make sure that I'm going to set my scale in this drawing. This one is set to 1 inch equals 40. But if I look in my lower right-hand corner, I'm set to 12 inches equals 1 foot. So let's go ahead and set up our scale. So to make sure it matches, 1 inch equals 40, apply our scale. And that's going to make it so that when we do that multiply command, it's going to work at what I would expect it to work at, right? And furthermore, let's just go have some fun. And we're going to use this multiply feature to make new parking stalls. Let's say we don't like this whole double line thing they got going on here, or maybe we need to accommodate wider vehicles because, Cybertruck is coming. So let's go ahead and erase some parking stalls and make a Cybertruck only parking stall. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all of these guys. So that was just as simple as using the edit PDF content erase content command. And I left the little nubs there. I could have been a little bit more precise with my erasing, but it is what it is. We'll make it work, right? So let's go ahead and create a new line. So I'm just going to create a simple, nothing is simple when the zoom controls are over my toolbar. I'm going to create a simple line, and I'm just going to follow the existing curve line, right? Because that's what it would be measured off of. So I'm going to snap to content, but it's not snapping to content. Oh, foreshadowing a little bit. I'm going to go up, since there's multiple ways to do this. I'm going to go up into edit, view, snap to content. That is not enabled. This is one of those preferences that we're going to talk about later that needs to be set. I want to be able to snap to that content. Knowing that I have a vector-based PDF here, I want to make sure that any vectors that it finds, Revu is going to be able to snap to it. So I'm going to choose snap to content. And now it's kind of hard to see, but there's a little glyph there that's kind of following me around, and it will snap there, and it's snapping along that line. It's really hard to see, but it is grabbing that line there. So now I'm going to draw a line that mirrors that that curve line. Actually, I'm going to go I'll go over here. Now, what I can do is, if this were CAD, I would have an ortho functionality, right? Where I could have a line draw straight or up and down orthogonally. I can do this in Revu. All I got to do is enable the shift key on my keyboard. So I'm going to hit shift on my keyboard and watch what happens to the line. It's going to lock to either 90 degrees, 45 degrees, or 0 degrees, or 180, depending on your outlook in life, right? So I'm going to go ahead and draw my line here, and I'm going to click and let that go. Now, this is the line that I want to multiply. Instead of having well, wait a minute. This is to scale, right? We can go ahead and measure our existing stalls. So they're about 9 feet. You know, this is a double line. I could also snap over here to them. Actually, look at those. Those aren't equal. I've never noticed that before, as much as I've been in this data set. It's kind of bugging me. So that's why we're going to go over here. All right, let's say they're 9 feet apart, and now I need to make new ones that are 12 feet apart. So this is what that multiply command is going to come really handy for. So in order to use this multiply command, I'm going to choose the line that I just drew, my new parking stall. I'm going to right click on it, and there's now a function called multiply. So it's a new button. It is a new shortcut for Control M that's going to allow you to multiply a markup or a measurement. So let's go ahead and select multiply. And now we get to choose a few different things. Now, immediately, you see that sort of pink overlay there? It's doing this preview, and it's thinking that I want to move right by 1 foot, right? And how many copies do I want to make? Actually, I want to go up. So in the multiply command, I have now functionality for right, left, up, or down. So I want to choose up, right? Because I'm going to move up, and I want to move up 10 feet. So I'm going to go 10 feet. Or what did I say? 10 or 12? Let's just do 12. So I'm going to move up 12 feet, and I can choose my units here accordingly. Do I want to do feet and inches? Do I just want to do feet? You know, do I want to do yards, miles, whatever? I'm going to choose 12 feet. We're talking civil here. And now I can choose, and see that preview is going to help me along, right? So if I turn off the preview, it's not going to give me that. I don't know why you would want to turn that off. And now I can choose my copies. And look at this. Now, unfortunately, I don't know how many I need, right? Because I didn't zoom out before I started the command. And this one does not work transparently, meaning that I cannot scroll my mouse wheel and zoom out at this point. So I'm just going to say 8 copies, and we're going to hit OK and hope for the best, right? And we'll see what we get. I need a couple more. No big deal, right? Because I can simply click on that one again, and we'll go back to multiply. And with that, one thing that I didn't like that might be adjusted, it didn't remember what I did last time. I think that would be helpful, right? So now I got to go back 12 feet, and I can choose my copies. Pretty cool. I'll hit OK there. One of these will get widened out. That'll be an accessible space or something else. Actually closer to the building, if we're going to be correct. Or I would move that curb line down and make a bigger island. But there we go. Kind of a neat little function. Now, if I didn't have that multiply command, that could still be done manually, but not the easy way. I think this function is pretty handy for things like parking stripes. Additionally, it would be handy for, utilities where I need to maintain a certain spacing between them. I can go ahead and draw that accordingly, and maybe we'll jump into some utility custom line types as we've got time going on. So there's that multiply command. Pretty cool. You can also go left, right. It works with measurements. So if I wanted to, create a little area over here, I don't know why you would do this. Oh, wait, I didn't do area. I did polylength. Whatever. Polylength. Got that going on. Holy moly, that's a mess. I'm going to go over to my profiles or my properties. I'm going to turn off my caption, turn off my segment values, and I'm going to do the same thing. I can multiply this one, and we'll just make that one go left by, 3 feet, make a bunch of copies. So you can see how that can be used. Left, right, up, down. Pretty cool. I would imagine in the future there will be some sort of angular multiplication. So if you wanted to offset at 45 degrees, whatever else. So I'm going to hit cancel here. Alex, does it work with snapshots? That's a good question. I like snapshots. So like this little bench here. Let's see if this works, right? So I'll come over here to snapshot, edit, come down snapshot, or alternatively, you can do hotkey G. Let's grab this little bench thing, and I'll paste it, and we'll stick it. Well, I suppose put it on top. Let's see if it multiply. Ooh, multiply up. Sure enough, look at that. Let's make that 8 feet away. Okay, 20 feet away. Pretty cool. So another way that we can do our offsets or make our symbols work better. So snapshots, measurements, markups. I suppose that all that counts, but very cool. Good question, Alex. Thanks for that, because that was good to test. All right. So we looked at the multiply functionality. We applied it to that markup. We applied it to a snapshot. I showed you how it works with that measurement as well. Okay. Before we get into that, does it show in the markups list? Right. So since I drew a line, I should have 1, 2, 3, and I should have a bunch of lines in my markups list. Let's go down here and take a look. So, yep, there we go. It has duplicated my lines and it duplicated my snapshots. Again, if I want to filter by my subject, there we go. 12 lines, 2 snapshots. So all the multiplications that you did, it does show up in the markups list. Good stuff. I was playing with this yesterday in a utility function. Like if I had a water line and I needed to make sure my sewer line was 8 feet apart, I could draw those in, do my offsets, and make it work. Additionally, it would work good for laying out easements, a bunch of functions, especially if you're talking about like fence lines and doing fence posts or anything that has that common spacing between them. It'll work out really handy. So again, Revu is not CAD software. It's not going to be as accurate as, AutoCAD or Civil 3D or Revit or whatever. But when it comes to making markups and making sketches and preliminary stuff, and certainly, just layout stuff, it's really handy and it's getting smarter. And I really appreciate that functionality. All right. So before we dive into, I'm going to come back to the caption stuff. Before I dive into that, we're going to set up some software. We're going to set up the Revu interface to do a couple different things. We're going to mess it up really good and have some fun and see what we get. But before I get that, I'm going to catch up on the chat here. Anybody have Arial font go rogue and become boxes once you click out of the text? Yeah, Arial should always work because it's a true type font. Pro tip for those who are in the CAD world who are not using true type fonts, you're going to find that it's best if you just move to the true type. I know it's tempting to stick on our old Roman S or Simplex or one of those other fonts that is SHX based or shape based. But true type, since it is a Windows one, is just going to make your life easier for those on the receiving end as well. Sometimes in CAD, when you're creating PDF files, and you're using a font that's not true type, when it comes over to Revu, it becomes a mess. Either you're going to get boxes or you'll get some sort of shadowing or worse, they show up as black boxes. But the part that I think is most troublesome is that you're not going to have the ability, to use the edit function. Right? Editing text is a really cool function in Revu, and being able to select it and say that, what kind of building should this be? New warehouse building. Whoops. Right? Being able to change that font wouldn't be possible if I didn't have a true type font. Right? And what happens is, I shouldn't have done it that way. What happens that when you can't edit that font, it gives you an error message and it says, I forget what it says, but it'll let you know that it can't do it. And nobody likes to be limited on functionality, right? So being able to make your life easier, just switch those true type fonts. Now, sometimes things like that, what you just found with Arial being a true type font having issues, it can get corrupted, whether it be a Windows update thing or a different driver. Some of this software is getting more and more reliant on, the .NETs and some of the other stuff that's going on in the background that can cause a little bit of issues. So when in doubt, update, restart, and call me in the morning type of thing, right? All right, so let's dive in and make Revu work for us. Now I'm gonna do something crazy here. I'm gonna set up my Revu in a way that I normally never would. And the reason I'm doing this is because, well, I got a new computer and I haven't spent the time to customize this. So I'm not afraid to go to this button and go to admin and reset Revu. I'm going to reset review completely. And I'm not going to save that. And there we go. So I closed review. I reset it. It's reopening. It's on my other screen. It's giving me a dialog box. Oh, we're going to turn that off. And I'm going to accept that, of course, because I read everything. And now when I move review back over to my main screen, it's going to look default. So if you just did that update that I showed you at 21.0.50, this is how review is probably going to look when you first open it up. It likes to give you this welcome to review thing, which is kind of cool because it does give you a little video, but more importantly, I love this sample file. So if I'm doing some sort of quick demo or training, point them to the sample file. It's included with review. You've seen Michael and I use this same PDF a bunch of times here on Morning Coffee Review. And this gives you something handy and consistent that we can all play with, right? So maybe I'll come back to that, or I'll just leave it open for now. If at any time you wanted to go back to that window, you can go to Welcome to Review or hit F12, and it takes you right back there. So there are some review tutorials built in. There are some custom tools, or you can just skip it like most people do, and it will just close that window, right? So when we're talking about making review work for you, this is one of the things about review that I like the most, right? And not because I like to customize things and tinker and I can't leave anything alone, but more so because there's so much that you can do with this, right? And review gives you that capability through profiles. And if we come up to the review menu and go to profiles, you'll see out of the box, you get 4 different profiles: review, review advanced, quantity takeoff, and field issues. Now you can create all the profiles you want. If you want to make a custom Monday one, or a Tuesday one, or a in the field one, or out of the field one, or a company special one, or a department one, you have that capability through Manage, which we'll get to in a minute. But before we go there, let's start with our preferences, right? So I went to review preferences. Now, making it work for you, there's a couple things that I like to show in here. Main one is I don't have to say my username is that. I can just say Jason, right? Or I can go over here and say my theme. Do I want a dark theme or a light theme? Now, I'm going to do it. I'm scared to do it, but I'm going to do a light theme because I don't know why. I don't use light theme for anything. But when we're talking about customizing and making things weird, let's just get it over with, right? Additionally, I'm going to go back to my old AutoCAD days, and I'm going to show a full screen crosshair. We're just going to mix this whole thing up. We're going to make it ugly. It's going to hurt your eyes, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. Oh, it's gross. It's not terrible, but I know I talked big game, like I was going to lean into this, but I don't think I can. It's too tough. But while I'm in here, the reason I wanted to show you that function is that some of those settings will stay regardless of their profile, right? So when I move my profile from review to review advanced or quantity takeoff, you see the interface changes, but that light theme is consistent throughout. I'm going to go back to review advanced, and I'm going to go back to my preferences, and I'm going to turn this off because this becomes way too weird for me, and I can't lean into it like I was going to. And so I see some chat. Don't do it, my eyes. I'm sorry. Don't hold me accountable for any retinal burn. Wasn't my fault. CJ made me do it. Anyway, I will go through here and I will say, go back to my preferences. Now there are some things in here, right? I changed my username and I changed my theme and I added my full screen crosshair. There are some other things in here that may be of value to you. I'm going to go to grid and snap, right? So when I showed you this earlier, or when I first did that demonstration of drawing that parking line, I did not have the snap to content enabled. I can do that right here in my preferences as well. And I'm going to snap to content and snap to markup. I can choose if I want to snap to midpoints or endpoints or intersections. So again, giving me more control, CAD-like of where my snaps go. And I can ignore tiny line segments. I love that function. And that snap color, right? Remember how it was really hard to see that little snap box or that pick box if we're going to use CAD terms. So I'm going to change mine to red. it's going to be more functional for me to see. If there's a color that you like better, or orange to stay on the fall Halloween theme, go ahead, set it. That way it will be easier for you to see, and you'll be able to do your thing. Now, from our metric friends, you do have the ability to change it to millimeters or centimeters. And we can do that. Points, if you're into that sort of thing. And then spelling, of course, we can set up your spell check. So spell check and review actually works pretty good. Of course, you can include your uppercase words. If you've got custom words, you got a company name, you've got, different acronyms or whatever, add them to your dictionary here, and that will make sure that they are ignored by the spell check. I know if we put in ATG everywhere, it will tell us it's misspelled. So that's a word that I would want to add, so it ignores it and it doesn't flag it as wrong. Right now, this autocomplete thing, you can turn this on, you can turn this off, you can manage it. I'm kind of getting burnt out on autocomplete, honestly. Seems like every software that we're using anymore, Outlook or anything else, wants you to do autocomplete, and sometimes it's handy. In review, I like to turn this one off, right? It makes it tricky because sometimes, you get in the zone, you're going fast, and you'll think you're typing one word and then autocomplete does something else. You've seen the memes about, darn autocorrect. We're just going to go ahead and leave that off, right? So in general, I changed the username, spelling, grid and snap. There is a bunch of other things in here as far as items in your recent. Now we're getting a little far. There are some other functions as far as snapshots, making sure that this is always enabled. I don't know why we would ever want to turn that one off. Some of our studio stuff, this is getting a little more than most users would need to get in here for. But I like to show you at least those three things, right? The general tab, grid and snap, spelling, and then optionally your advanced. Now in advanced, sometimes you will see, I know coming from the support side of our business here, we get a lot of things where review isn't running fast. It's not running smooth. We've got different issues. I'm not on a high-speed computer. How can I get review to perform in a different way? You can go over here and change your rendering engine for 2D or 3D from hardware to software, or you can disable it. This is usually what we recommend playing with to see if that improves any performance. You can also, change your rendering modes for iterative draw, which you should always do, things like that. Now, I see in the chat, there was some functionality about reusing tools. If you like to reuse tools, you can enable it here. There is another button that I will show you in just a minute that can enable that as well. If you're doing a lot of marking up, right? If you're doing a lot of, just markups in general, that's pretty handy to use. That's going to keep you from clicking the same button again and again and again, right? Now, keep in mind that here in review, or here in our preferences, this is going to go through all of our settings, right? So regardless of what profile we're in, these preferences will dictate those things. So while I'm in here, I've made some settings. Now I know at the end of this, I'm going to reset my review back to default, right? And you can do that here. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and export my settings, because I got a brand new computer, right? And I want to just save my preferences, so I don't have to spend the time to go back in there. So I'm just going to hit save here, and it's just going to give me an XML file in my Bluebeam folder that that I can use whenever I want, right? So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And well, since we're in the sake of experimenting today, I'm going to go over to admin. Let's just reset again, show you how this works. Again, review closed down. It's opening up on my other screen. It's going to ask me if I accept the usage data. Of course I do. And then once this is done loading, I will bring this back over and maximize it. So now we're back to review. It still grabbed my username from my login name. Now I spent all that time, all 30 seconds of setting up my preferences. I'm going to go ahead and go on to import. I'm going to go find that review preferences that I just made, and I'm going to hit open and hit. Oh, interesting. Try that again. That didn't do what it should have done. It kept my snap to content, kept my measurement, kept my orange, right? Kept my autocomplete off. It kept my, what else did I change? Nothing. Hardware, okay. What it didn't change was my username. Interesting. I thought that would carry over. I swear it did at one point. So it's not perfect, is what I'm saying here. Interesting. Anybody else seen that happen before? Or am I losing my mind? Okay, while we're in here, there was this one. So Bob mentioning this one being handy. Yes, auto size text box and call up markups. I'm going to turn this off to show you what it means if you haven't seen this one before, and then we'll come back to it. All right, since we're in the sake of messing around today, we'll go back to our sample file. I will close that, close this. So look at those full screen orange crosshairs. If I'm doing a text box, right? Mark tools, markup, text box, and I create this box. This is where I want my words to go, right? And I hit escape to get out of there. Look at the size of my text box. I picked that giant rectangle, but my words aren't that big. So now I'm stuck with this grip thing that I can go over here and sort of make it work, but it's not going to be perfect. There's an auto size functionality. Additionally, you can do Alt Z on the keyboard that will do that for you. Or in the preferences, you can go over here to tools, auto size text box, and call up markups. This means that next time I go do my markup for my text box, I can go over here and say, this is also where I want my words to go. And when I hit escape, now look, it didn't give me the whole big rectangle that I selected. It auto-sized it automatically. It's pretty handy. And there you go. So, ooh, Jared, that's a very, very good point. Okay, let's go back. So in here, my preferences, right? So there's that auto size, there's the reuse, there's a bunch of different things in here. And I just noted that as I imported and exported them, my username did not change. And Jared, I need to drink my coffee because I should have thought about that. Now, what I didn't think about and what I meant to highlight is that I made some changes. I set up some settings in here that they're pretty handy, right? I would probably want everybody to have the same settings just because it's going to make life a little bit easier on my whole team, especially if I'm in charge of setting up review for my organization. So if I go in here and I export this, I need to think a little bigger picture, right? I back this up for me and my computer, but what I might want to do is save this on the server so I can deploy it to my department or my company or whatever else. Now, this file, this XML file, can also be included on the deployment of review. So as we start going through and manipulating the profiles and manipulating the tool chest and manipulating some of the different toolbars and things within review, keep in mind all of that can be deployed as you roll it out. So working backwards, where I mentioned that, hey, there was a new version of review that came out, 21.0.50. If I'm in charge of rolling that out to my whole organization, in that deployment guide, I can go in and include my profile files and my preferences files and have all those things ready to go at the same time. Now, if you haven't seen the deployment guide, I went to help, which is automatically going to open up the window or the web tab functionality here in review. And there is, I got this, okay, Zoom things over my way. I don't spend a whole lot of time in this particular help page, but there are a ton of great resources right here in Review. Ooh, and including a new onboarding. We're going to have to go into this because I'm curious, and I'm going to go over here and I'm going to bookmark this thing, add to favorites. I want to come back and read that. But what I came in here for was the deployment guide, right? And it's in here somewhere. There are different deployment guides where you can go through and look at the IT resources. Bluebeam did a really, really good job at making sure it's understandable for everybody, right? So if you're deploying through the different methods, there's a ton of resources on their website. Go check it out if you're in charge of deploying things. It can get a little crazy, but here you go. All your resources are right there. Implementation guide. Hey, do I want to do it across my organization? Looks like they just updated these websites. This looks really, really good. I'm going to dive into this a little bit more later on. All right. All right. Did they kill off the deployment tool? Once upon a time, they did, but now it looks like they got it back. So you can do the deployment packages, right? I thought this was disabled for a little bit. So when you download this 64-bit Review 21, it's not just going to download the software. It's going to grab the whole zip file. And that whole zip file is the MSI that's going to allow you to deploy 21.0.50 across your organization. And it's going to give you all the stuff. So again, Bluebeam did an amazing job through the deployment packages, what's all in here, how to set it up. You know, when in doubt, read the manual. There's some good stuff in here. Now, yeah, there was a time, I'm 50% sure there was a time where this was disabled and they took away the MSI for Review 21. Okay, thank you, Bruce. Not just an illusion. But now it's back and they've got it all set up. There's some good stuff in here. This one comes up a lot, markup mode, view mode. So when in doubt, read the manual. Bluebeam has amazing talent that actually spends the time to do things. So here we go. All right. So on that note, we're going, oh, there was an MSI config editor that went away. That's what it was. A little bit more manual process than it was, but it's still there. Some form of MSI is still there, right? There you go. Deployment process. Setting up a staging computer. What I always recommend. Good stuff. All right. So in that note, tying the room back together, right? We're going to go through review. We're going to set company profiles. We're going to set it up to make it work for us. Settings and things like that, right? So I'll close the deployment guide. We change our preferences. We'll assume that those are all done. I exported that XML file. Now we're going to go to profiles, right? And this is where you're going to want to create a profile that works for your organization, or it works for you, or it works for your workflow, things like that. So I'm going to go to Review Advanced. This is sort of my comfort zone. This is where I spend most of my time because it has the toolbars set up the way that I like them for the most part, right? For the most part. I kind of like my sketch to scale stuff over here. And all I got to do is drag that down and I can put that right under my other measurements, right? And I can right click up on any of these empty spaces and you can see all of the other toolbars that are available to me. So if I want my zoom tools up here, that's kind of handy. If I want to add my line style, I can have that up there. If I want to add my, document management, I don't like that one. I'm going to turn that one off. If I want to add in order, I use that one a lot. Notice that when I did that, it did reset the location of these guys. Whoa, it does get a little trickier to move them back to the places that you wanted them. Whoa. Okay, getting a lot trickier. But you can see where I'm going with this. I can manipulate this to make it work for me. So I have the things that I like, where I like them, when I like them, and they will all be part of this interface as I go. So I'm going to go back over to review, and I'm going to go to profiles, and I'm going to hit manage profiles. Now, yes, I should have locked those when I'm done. Well, let's go back and do that one I'm doing. Right click, you can go to lock, right? That's going to lock everything. Whoa, see that? They moved a little bit. What it did is it took away those little dashed lines. I'm going to unlock it so you can see what I was talking about. See those little dashed lines? Those are what you're going to click on to move things around. So when you do lock them, it takes away them and it does move a little bit, but pretty handy, right? Also notice that lock check mark is bigger than that check mark, and I think that's kind of funny. Anyway, everything's locked now. I can no longer move it. They are where they are because that's how I like them, right? So let's go in and let's work on our profile some more. Now, going to review profiles and then go to manage profiles. If I were to choose save profile, it's going to change that interface to always stay with review advanced. But sometimes I like my review advanced to stay review advanced. I want to have my own. So I'm going to come over here to manage profiles, and my active profile is review advanced. If I hit add, it's essentially making a copy of that. We're going to call this one Jason. I'm going to hit OK. And there we go. Now, notice what happened. You saw as soon as I did that, it kept all the same toolbar customizations, but it turned off the lock and it reset the location of some of those things. Not the end of the world, but it still made a change. So if you are going to, if you know you're going to be manipulating things, just go make your manage first, go make your profile, and then start messing with it. Right? So as always, let's say, just in case I forget to come back to this when we're done messing around, if you select the one that you created, you have the ability to export it. So let's say instead of calling this JSON, I called it ATG, and I want to deploy this across my entire organization so that we all have the same profile. This is where I would do that, right? I would hit export, and I would make sure to include dependencies. Those dependencies are going to be line types. They're going to be custom, a whole bunch of different things. I forget what, I wonder if Bluebeam has a list of what all the dependencies are. If not, that's something that maybe Michael and I should be working on. But it's going to grab all of the dependencies that review needs, whether that be line types or fonts or other settings in here. So we always want to make sure that that is enabled. And we'll hit export. Again, this is going to kick out a BPX file. Most of the Bluebeam review files are going to be B*X. So there's a BLX, BHX, BPX, B whatever. There's a bunch of different profile or Bluebeam dependent files that it's going to grab. So while I'm in here, I'm going to hit save. That way I can always come back to it. Just as we showed you with the preferences, I can go in here and import if I wanted to bring those back in. So we'll hit OK. And now when I go up to review and profiles, you'll see that I do have a special one called JSON. Now, this was where I'm going to start going nuts, right? I'm going to start making more of the customizations that I'm going to want to make, right? Remember that the preferences don't care what profile you're in. So things like the dark mode versus light mode, the snap to content, the spell check, all those things are going to travel with you profile to profile. But the actual profile itself is what's going to control your overall interface. I won't say overall because we do have the modes, right? But it's going to control your toolbars. It's going to control your panels on the side. It's going to control what's in your tool chest. It's going to control, things like my tools. It's also going to control things that you've got going on, around the interface as well, besides the panels. So since we have a few minutes left, let's go ahead and do a refresher real quick. Up at the top, we have our menu bar. There's nothing we can do about this. This will always be here regardless of what profile we're in. And this becomes a handy place for us to go find our tools and do our thing. And while I'm in here, in case you haven't noticed, there is a letter that corresponds with a hotkey. So if you get into CAD mode, if you're an old AutoCAD person like me and you love typing things in, you can type P for pen, you can type L for line. You can't edit that, but that's for a whole other day. What you can't do is change the location. If you want the menu bar to be on this side or in the middle, or if you want to add things to it, you can't. What you can do is manipulate your toolbars, which I just showed you by dragging and dropping. You can right click in an empty space, click on ones that you want to have, and you can lock them. Or you can come in and you can manipulate your panels. Now, since I started with Revu Advanced profile, that's going to put a different panel on my left side versus my right side. Some of the other profiles are going to have the panels all on one side. So if I go back, review, profiles, review, see how it puts the panels on the left side, and then it puts my toolbar on the right. If I go back to my profile, go to JSON, you'll see that it splits those panels, so we get them half and half. Now, in my profiles, or in my panels here on the left side, I have my file access, my thumbnails, my bookmarks, my layers, my tool chest, my forms, my signatures, and my studio. I can right click on this panel as well to see what I want to show and not show. Now, I know all of my panels are enabled because I see they're highlighted in blue. If I want to go down and turn off signatures, I can do so, and it will, okay, not disappear. Interesting. I'm trying to turn it off. It's not letting me. It's changing my location of them, but it's not turning it off. All right. You have to go individually and go hide, right? It's kind of annoying because we didn't have that function with toolbars. So I kind of wish that was consistent, right? Now it's turned off. If I want to turn it back on, I can go there. So if I want to turn it off, you got to hit hide. Kind of, it is what it is, right? Additionally, with the panels, you can choose if you want them on the left side, the right side, bottom, or detach. Some of you probably have multiple monitors. You can do all sorts of things, right? You can move your panels and have it be on a different screen. You can move them on the bottom. I kind of like them on the left side, so I'm going to leave them there, right? There was a question, when you lock, does it only impact the toolbars? So yes, right? You can see that I have my lock enabled because I don't have those little horizontal or vertical separators anymore. So I lock these. I cannot move my toolbars around, but you can see I can still manipulate my panels. And by manipulating, I can turn them on and off, and I can also drag their location. So I'm dragging and dropping accordingly, right? So that lock function only affects the toolbars. Good question. I can auto hide panel access. This is something that I am not good at remembering to do anymore. Once upon a time, that was really handy in the CAD world when we were fighting for every last bit of drawing space. I like to have my panels up. They're a little faster to get to. But if you wanted to, this is what it looks like. Turn on auto hide, and you kind of have to hover over them to get them going again. I don't like it. All right, so we've got our tool chest. We've got things manipulated. I move my signatures there. Let's say there's my customization that I really wanted. I always like having studio at the bottom. But I can go ahead and manipulate these to my heart's content, right? If I didn't want to show layers, if I didn't want to show, links, I have the ability to hide them and turn them off. So you can customize it. Why would you want to do this though, right? Because we got different workflows and there's so many different things that we can do in Revu that maybe we don't need all this stuff in our way. If I'm focusing on preliminary drawing, right, where I started with that site plan and I was laying out parking stripes, I don't need some of these other functions, right? I can just set this up so all my buttons are in one concise place, make it really easy for me to get to so I can get in, do my work, and get out. Now, in a different part of the project, I might need to go in here and do markups. I might need to do something else, but I'll be able to go through and customize this however I like so I can be as efficient as I can. Now, I don't know about you all, but I love being efficient. I don't like taking the long way unless I've got time to take the long way, right? I want to get in, I want to do my work, I want to get out. I want to maximize the time I have available and not have to spend so much time doing and redoing and doing complex functions when there's an easier way to do things. That's just how I like to roll. And that's why I would want to do a profile, right? I'm going to set it up to where I like it. I don't have to go hunt for things because I know where everything is. Makes sense, right? Now, while I'm in here and I have this open, I'm going to mention the keyboard shortcuts. I mentioned a little bit ago, if you're an old CAD person who likes typing things in, you do have the ability to customize these however you like. So back in the day, we used to mess around with AutoCAD key commands, so they were more left-hand friendly, right? You would change them so you didn't have to hunt around the keyboard as much because your left hand is naturally on the left side of the keyboard. You would change some of the keystrokes to make it faster and more efficient. You can do that with Revu. You can absolutely create different commands and different tools, and you can have that set up the way you like. And of course, you can export those settings as you go, right? So if you really want a hot rod review, this is a good way to do it. Now, keep in mind, once you mess around with keyboard shortcuts, you're going to lose this really handy tool over help with your keyboard shortcuts guide. This is a PDF file that gives you a nice, dare I say, printable way to put up on your cubicle wall, your office wall, so you can get really quick with those. Now, assuming you have all the time in the world, you can also go in here, remember, use our review tool since this is a PDF, and I can edit that text. Add bookmark, it's not B, it's actually Control R. Oh, there's that problem that I was trying to highlight. I can't edit text with font Open Sans semi-bold because no corresponding system font was found. To edit the text, you must first change the font. Wah, 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 wah. So this, what I was mentioning earlier with the true type thing. If you have a true type or a system font, it's going to make it easier to do those things. Since this was created and we don't have this font installed with Windows, it's not going to work. So there we go. Bummer. Now, if you just want to roll with the defaults, of course, you can print this out, but Revu and Bluebeam has made a wonderful little mouse pad. I know I've got 1 or 12 around here somewhere that have all the shortcuts on it, and it's a little guide. So if you're at, AU or XCon or an ATG event, sometimes we have these things handy. So they're pretty cool. So that's where that keyboard shortcuts guide is. You can customize them here at Review and Keyboard Shortcuts, or you can find this PDF here at Help Keyboard Shortcuts Guide, right? I'm going to dismiss that, and we're going to continue manipulating things accordingly. So as I mentioned, we can change our profiles or change our panels and have those be in whatever location that we want them to be. Now, down at the bottom, again, I'm going to spend our last 5 minutes on our markups list. This is the biggest differentiator for Bluebeam, right? No other PDF software has a markups list that works this way. And this is what makes Revu so powerful, is that anything that we're doing inside of Revu is tracked in that markups list. We saw that earlier when I created those parking stripes. For every instance of that parking stripe, it showed up in the markups list because that was a markup or a change or a symbol or a measurement or whatever I did to PDF is now in that markups list. Now, with this markups list, this can also be customized in a bunch of different ways. I've got my subject, my page label, comments, author, date, status, color, layer, space here. Now, I can move these around. If I want to drag them around to a different location, I have that capability. If I want to show data or don't want to show data, I can come over to the word markups list, go over to columns, and similar to our toolbars, we have that checkbox functionality where I can turn on and turn off specific columns. So talking about my coordinates, there's my X, there's my Y. I can have those. I can have my area, my counts, anything that I could possibly want. Now, if there's something in here that I want, but I don't see here, I can go down here to the very bottom and choose manage columns. And here is where I can also choose if it's built in, was it imported, whatever. I can also go to custom columns. Custom columns. We've spent a lot of time here on Morning Coffee Review talking about custom columns, whether manipulating these to do cost estimates or to do material choices or to do a whole bunch of different things. There's a lot of power that can be unlocked in these custom columns. Now, I'm just going to do one really, really quick, and I'm just going to do one for material, right? Just to show you some options in here, get your wheels turning. I'm going to make this choice, and I'm going to say carpet. This is where I would assign a numeric value if I wanted to do a price thing. And while I'm here, might as well, $1.50, and I'll hit OK. Now, that subject line, I left it blank. There's a rhyme and reason to that, but we'll save that for another day. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to create a tile, right? That's going to be $4.50. Making up numbers here. So having a material choice is going to allow me, especially since I had no subject assigned, I'm going to be able to assign that material to anything here in my markups list. Let's say that I'm an estimator. Let's say that I'm working on different things. This is going way deeper than we have time for, but I can customize hatch patterns and all sorts of things to correspond with these. But in a similar vein, I can hit OK here. There's that export button again. And when I export this, I can apply it to my document, and there's another XML file that I can include with my deployment, to my backups, whatever else. Additionally, I can save this to my profile. So as I save this to my profile, it's going to be applied to my JSON profile that I made. And we're not going to see this on any other one. So now I have a material option, and I can go in here and I can select carpet or tile for whatever those things are. Additionally, I'd probably do that on a area measurement, right? Here's the whole flooring section. Let's go ahead and make that carpet. There we go. It's going to apply that value, and there we go. So what I wanted to show you this one for is to go back to our custom functions here. So in this measurement, or this area measurement that was here in this sample file that's included with Revu, we have the functionality to have our length, which is going to be basically our perimeter of that room, and we have our area of 649 square feet. Now, I can use my shift key and move that text around. Bonus tip for those who have messed with areas and tried to move the text around. If you hold down the shift key and grab the text itself, not the little node here, you can move those things. But additionally, if I don't care about the length, I can go to my properties and go turn that off. So I'm going to come over to my area measurement, and I'm going to go down to the bottom, midpoint, I should say, and there's a show caption option. If I turn off show caption, it's going to get rid of that value completely. Now, to the right of that show caption is a button called edit. If I choose edit, it's going to allow me to turn off length, but I can turn on the label, which is now going to show that carpet 1 that I added. I don't know why the 1 is there though. Depth, whatever. So I do have that capability to include certain custom captions to make this easier for someone to understand, right? I'm wondering if it's grabbing the 150 over here and it's not displaying the whole thing. Interesting. Anywho, with that note, we went through Revu. we set up our profiles, or sorry, we set up our preferences, right? We changed some settings that I recommended. I showed you the evil light theme. I showed you, how to fix your content, your spelling, things like that, how to back it up so that you have it, how to export it to include it with your deployment. We created a new profile, which we then manipulated our location of our toolbars. We manipulated our panels. We manipulated our markups list. Now Revu is set up the way that I like it. I can now share this with my company, share this with my department, all by going through and managing, importing, exporting, and deploying accordingly. So if you haven't done the new update, right, the new update 21.0.50 that just came out, this is a good time to go through, set up your settings, get your deployment rolling again, and roll it out to your whole company in an easier way, right? This is going to make it so that when you go to computer, everybody's going to have the same settings, and it's going to be pretty quick for you to help them along as everybody goes down their Revu journey. So with that said, thank you for joining me today on Morning Copy Review. This has been a special solo edition. I'm missing my buddy Michael today. I've done a lot of talking, but we'll all be back next week for a special edition, which will be the Halloween edition, which will be our Espresso Yourself. We've got one of my favorite people, Kyle Lee, joining us. We're going to have some good talks. I think there might be some smack talk between Bluebeam Studio and Autodesk Construction Cloud. So be sure to tune in next Tuesday, Halloween, for that. And we'll have Michael back. And other than that, enjoy what's left of fall. It's starting to get chilly up here, but we will see you next week. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.